everybody, and welcome to a very special board gaming video. The reason that this one is so particularly special is that it's not really entirely about board games. This one is so special because I'm going to be talking a lot about games that are sort of digitally enhanced. Now, what does that mean? It means that I'm going to be talking about board games that use app accompaniment, be it with a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, like running in a browser, something like that. Now, there are going to be two major categories in this list. It is still a regular top 5 list, but I'm going to mention either one or another category, where on the one hand we've got games that are designed to be run with an app and to be played with an app, and then we've got games that are not designed to be played with an app but have apps available. So the obvious difference between the two is if you've got a game that was designed to be played with an app, it is either very difficult or impossible to play it without the app accompaniment, whereas if the game was not designed with the app in mind, then obviously you can play it without the app fairly easily. So I think it's very interesting. It's a very unique category that's really more so recently come more and more into play. So I'm going to get started off with one honorable mention. My honorable mention for this is a game that I have talked about several times in a lot of different contexts, and most importantly, the app for it is actually related to the biggest thing that I talked about it for. The game itself is Mage Knight. Within Mage Knight, you actually have the ability to play solo. There's a solo mechanic, and for the solo mechanic, the way that it works is you have a dummy. The dummy essentially acts as a timer so that you know when the different phases go, because you go day, night, and essentially the dummy app acts as an additional timer. If you don't make the timer go off, so to speak, then the dummy will do it for you. And the way that it works normally is that you essentially have a separate stack of cards that you're flipping over, and then you flip up more if you get a specific condition and all that kind of stuff. But what the app does, it actually takes that aspect away, and the app does that part for you. You pick whichever character you want the app to, quote, play as, and then you just say, end of my turn, and then it goes and it does the dummy's, quote-unquote, turn. So it just makes it for a less clustered area, so to speak, but overall, it doesn't do a great deal, and that's why this is just an honorable mention, because as a game with an app, there's not really a whole lot going on. It doesn't really save you a ton of time. It does save you a little bit of time and a little bit of clutter on the table, which is always nice. So there's nothing really wrong with it. But regardless, Mage Knight is my one honorable mention of a digitally enhanced game. At number 5 is a game that by all means I really should have enjoyed. But the thing is, I didn't enjoy it too much, but the thing is, the app for it is absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, I don't actually own the game, but what I do have is this. The Xbox 360 version of XCOM Enemy Unknown. So the board game, obviously, is XCOM from Fantasy Flight. This was released not too long ago, and it is a interesting game. It is a good game. It is a well-made game. I like the concept of the game. The way that the app works is actually really cool. The way the entire game itself is it's all cooperative. Everybody is working together. It's really nice because it's got the solo mechanics built in, because it's essentially, instead of playing with 4 people, you're just playing with 1 person, like so many co-op games you can do. The way that the app works, though, what it does is it actually tracks what the aliens are doing. So what you do is you select a specific invasion type, and then the app sort of moves through real-timed events that forces you to take actions in a specific order, and you have to the app will tell you, most likely at least, where the aliens are going to be landing, so you have to deploy troops, you have to send out interceptors, all of that kind of stuff. It's really, really cool and very, very similar to the original XCOM. So obviously the very, very original XCOM came out several decades ago. But even XCOM Enemy Unknown is a very, very, very good turn-based strategy game, and the board game does get a lot of the essence of XCOM Enemy Unknown. So it is overall well-designed, and I like the idea of it. The problem that I have with the board game is just that it is so complex. I know that sounds kind of weird from somebody who talks an awful lot about Twilight Imperium, but the thing is, if you look at the board itself is so busy. There's just so many things going on at the same time. There's so many little bits and pieces that can slide and move around. And part of the issue with playing with the app is the fact that you have to play in real time. So that can be very, very difficult, especially for newer players who aren't used to, not even used to board games, but even used to co-op games at all. It can make it very stressful, and obviously that is partially the point and why the app is so cool, because it's got the little timer on it that says how long you've got and all that. But I just personally didn't enjoy it that much, but I do like the way that it was designed. I think it makes sense. I think it is reminiscent of the video games, which is great, and something that's relatively rare in board games that come from video games. But overall, in general, the game itself, I didn't enjoy, primarily because I just thought that slightly different decisions could have been made, and I would have had a lot more fun with it, even just changing up the board and the components a little bit. But either way, still, the app itself is wonderful, very, very helpful. You can run it on Android, iOS, you can run it in a browser. You can do whatever you want with it. It's a ubiquitous app, and it works very well. It's overall, it's a great merging between the analog and the digital. So regardless, the XCOM board game from Fantasy Flight is my number 5. Number 4 is another game that unfortunately I do not own, but I only recently played this with the app. It's a game that I have played many, many times, and is actually very similar to several other games that I have talked about. The game itself is Warewolf. Now, this takes on various forms, but the app itself is really, really cool. It's very exciting because, for those of you who don't know how Warewolf works, the idea is that you can play with virtually unlimited numbers of players. I think it's up to like 30 or something like that. There's a lot of people that can play. But either way, the way it works is every person has a role. They have some kind of shtick that they get to do, and the idea is that everybody, you have a moderator who's sort of in control, and they go and talk to everybody. They know who everybody is. They go and they talk to the werewolves, and they say, who are you going to kill, werewolves? And you know, etc., etc. It's a really fun game. It's a great party game. It's a lot of fun, but one of the issues I have with it is just that if you have a bad moderator, it's just like having a bad DM with something like D&D, where you're not really going to have a very fun time. What the app does, it actually removes entirely the need for a moderator. And the way that it does that is very, very similar to the way that Resistance works. And the idea with the app is it's really cool. You've got a minor selection screen that essentially just says, okay, pick which characters are in this game. Because you don't have to use all of the roles. You can pick and choose whichever ones you want. So you pick which ones are there, and then the phone actually has an audio that starts off by saying, everybody close your eyes, and then it says, this person, open your eyes, do your thing. This person, open your eyes, do your thing, etc., etc. And it goes in the correct order of the game. There's a very specific order the roles go in. So not only does it make it a lot easier for a bunch of the players, just in terms of you don't have to have a moderator so you can play with fewer people, but it's just kind of nice because everybody is doing the same thing simultaneously, and then it also has a round timer at the end so that people can determine who they're going to kill, because obviously you're trying to kill the werewolf. all that good stuff. So it's a very well designed app. It's aesthetically, it's very pleasing. It's relatively minimalist, but that's not bad. I mean, it, like I said, it is a good app. I think that it looks good and it's obviously very functional. It's not something that I expected to have a companion app, and I was genuinely surprised when I saw it. But after I played using the app, I was kind of like, wow, that's really cool. I think that is a great way to use an app, like a digital app in a analog game. So overall, it's just a wonderful experience, a great choice if you're looking for something to sort of bridge the gap between analog and digital. Warewolf, my number 4. At number 3, I've got a game that is a very, very awesome co-op game that I absolutely adore. And the app for it makes gameplay so much easier, and it also actually even makes the game setup much easier and much faster. Arkham Horror. So obviously this is a game that was not designed with an app in mind, but the Arkham app, this is a free app. All of the ones I've talked about so far are free, and I think they actually all are. But either way, it's a free app, and what this stores is actually, amongst other things, the Mythos cards. If you have ever played Arkham Horror, you know one of the most frustrating things is to get all of the Mythos cards together, get everything shuffled up together, especially if you're playing with expansions. It can be so annoying and so frustrating, and on top of that, but when you're doing things like when you're going to the other world, it also has the location cards as well. I forgot that. So with the location cards, if you're in another world, then you have to have another world card that matches the color that you need. It doesn't have to be the specific location, just as long as it's the right color. And normally, if you're playing, then you look at it, it's like, nope, that doesn't match. Nope, nope, nope. And sometimes you're drawing 5 or 6 times before you actually get a card you can use, and it can take a lot of time and it gets really frustrating. But this app takes care of everything. You don't have to worry about it whatsoever, because you've got the locations and you've got the Mythos both integrated in there, and then you just say, we need a new Mythos card, we need a location card for this specific location. It's got all of the information from all of the expansions. Absolutely amazing, a lot of fun, makes the game a lot easier, and again, much easier to set up, because you don't have to worry about any of those tiny little cards sitting beside the board. Makes it much smoother, a lot more streamlined. And in addition, there's another app, one that you can pay for, that actually includes a dice roller as well. I personally prefer to roll the dice myself, but if you don't want to, if you don't have the dice, if you just don't really care and just want to be able to use a cool app for it, then go right on ahead. There's another app that you can get that actually includes the dice roller as well. But regardless, Arkham Horror is my number 3 digitally enhanced game. Number 2, I actually have another game that I unfortunately do not own, but I played fairly extensively last year when I went to Gen Con. It had actually recently been released at the time. They had just released it, and they were sort of like putting out all of they had just gotten the first production run, etc., etc. That is neither here nor there. The game itself is Golem Arcana. Golem Arcana is a really interesting strategy war game, and the idea is that it's somewhat similar to, you can think of like Summoner Wars, where you've got specific creatures that you're controlling. I mean, with Summoner Wars and Mage Wars and all those kinds of things, then you've got cards that you're using, but in this case you don't have cards, you just have 3 little plastic miniatures that you're using, or some amount. You can change the number as well, and it's really interesting. You have a little pen, and the pen marks each one. You actually say what the board is first off. You have to say the design of the board, and then the app keeps track of the map. So it includes everything as far as the numbers are concerned that you would always have to keep track of with any other war game. So anytime you have stuff like terrain that gets in the way or that slows you down, anything like that, app keeps track of it, keeps track of HP of the monsters, keeps track of what abilities they can use, all of that kind of stuff. It's a really, really fun game, and it's a great example of a wonderful integration between the analog game that you're looking at and the app that you're playing. One of the cool things with the app also is that the company, I don't remember the company off the top of my head, but they also have campaign mode, which is essentially exactly what it sounds like, where you keep going back and forth and doing the skirmishes between the different factions that are available, and as you go through the campaign, depending on the win and loss ratio across the entire world, the campaign itself changes over time. So it's a really, really awesome, it's a really cool game. One of the issues I have is that it's very, very expensive. Obviously you need the fancy little miniatures, you got to get the pen and all that kind of stuff, so I understand it's being its expense, but that's a big part of why I don't have it. I did have a great deal of fun with it, though. The one really major negative point that I would say about it, though, is essentially that if you are using the app extensively, you are able to play without the app, but it is fairly difficult because they are designed to be very integrated. If you do play with the app, part of the problem is that since it keeps track of all the numbers, one of the things that happens is as you keep using the same creature over and over and over, it actually reduces the amount of things that that particular creature can do. So the idea is that you want to spread out amongst all of your characters. And the problem is, if you either don't know that, you don't realize you're doing it, or any other combination of what can cause that to happen, it can be very frustrating because you're like, oh, all I can do is move one square. I used to be able to move 5. What's going on here? And then you realize, oh, right, that decreases. So that's one of the sort of downsides of this whole integration between the analog and the digital, but overall, still very, very good. A lot of fun. Golem Arcana, my number 2. At number 1, I have an incredible game that I absolutely love and only recently acquired, but it is amazing. It is so much fun. The app for it works beautifully, and it's just, overall, it's a great game. Lots and lots of great mechanics. It is Alchemists. This is a really, really fun game that is very reminiscent of Dungeon Lords, if any of you have played that. They're actually from the same company, the Czech Games Edition. And the idea behind this is that you are playing as alchemists. And the whole point is that you don't know what different ingredients do, what they actually are, called the alchemies. You don't know what signs and symbols and the way that the ingredients work. So the idea is that you actually have an app. You don't have a phone, maybe you have a phone, but you have an app, and what it does is it scans the cards, and when it scans the cards, it tells you what kind of potion you made. And it's, I won't go into all the gory detail, but the idea is essentially that you want to figure out, you know how these different ingredients combine. So based on that information, you have to deduce what the most likely symbols and colors and sizes and all that kind of stuff are for each of the different ingredients. It's a ton of fun. It is a wonderful deduction game, but it is fairly heavy. I mean, obviously, again, like I said, it is similar to Dungeon Lord, so if you play that, it's pretty much on that same level as far as the depth and the strategy involved with it. And not only that, but not to mention the time. The thing with it, though, is, again, this is a game that was completely and utterly designed to be played with the app. You can actually see on the back, they have the QR code for it. I don't know if you can see it too well with the light there, but it's got the QR code right down here. so that you can download the app. Very, very integral to playing the game, which isn't bad. It's a good app. Just like all of the other ones, it's a solid app that makes sense. It's very functional, very easy to use, and very clear how to use it. So very, very good overall. But that said, you can actually play without the app. It is very possible. But the problem is that you need an additional person. You need somebody else to be sort of the game master, I think is what it's actually called in here. And the way that works is they have a similar deduction grid that's already essentially filled out. But all that happens is they randomize all the ingredients. So then instead of showing the app what cards you have, you give them to the game master and they will say, you made this potion, type of thing. So very, very similar to using the app, except instead of talking to a machine, you talk to a friend, hopefully. Hopefully it's a friend. But overall, just a fun game. I personally really love the theme for this because if you've seen some of my videos, you probably know that I am a scientist. So this kind of thing is absolutely amazing. Reading the rules was an absolute delight. Again, just like Dungeon Lords, they are absolutely hilarious. And for me especially, because they make a lot of jokes about science and academics and publishing and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really fun. It's a great example of integrating technology to an extent that it makes gameplay unique and fun and a lot easier, but at the same time the technology itself is not overbearing, which can potentially be a problem, like Golem Arcana, which I just talked about, where when you play that you can sort of forget what's going on and why your characters can't do what they used to do. But with Alchemists, you really don't get that same feeling. It's more like, oh, this app is really cool, it's a lot of fun to use, and it's just neat. It's a cool app, and it's a great game overall. I absolutely love this game. I really want to play more and more and more of it every single time I see it. But overall, Alchemists, my #1 digitally enhanced game. So that's it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know that this is really a growing category, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. As always, and especially now, I really want to hear you all's opinion on this. I want to hear, are there other games that you really like that have apps? There's probably a ton of board games that have apps that I am not aware of. What about games that are coming up that are going to use similar technology? Do you disagree with me on any of them? Particularly, I imagine XCOM. Some of you probably really enjoyed a lot more than I did. You know, do you disagree with me? Do you think that Golem Arcana is just a piece of trash and you need to throw it away? Whatever it happens to be, this is one of those videos that I'm very excited to hear about from you all as commenters, just to see what kind of stuff you all enjoy, especially just in the context of bridging this gap between the analog world of board gaming, or what we normally view as a completely and utterly analog, offline, separate world, being integrated more and more into the digital realm by use of apps and software and just anything like that. But regardless, again, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know that I had a very, very exciting time making it, and with that, I will see you next time. I hope that you enjoyed my video of my top 5 board games that integrate technology. As I said, this is a really huge thing that's going on right now, and I barely scratched the surface of some of the massive games that are out there that do integrate technology. So please feel free to put any and all thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I am anxious to see what other games you all have played that do this similar thing. With that said, as always, I've got several of my videos linked up at the top of the page, and if you want to see more from me in the future, please click that big giant subscribe button. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.